Hey guys, welcome to another challenge I posted this morning. Wanted to put two different sentences today, but like always, we are going to separate all of our ideas using punctuation first. So again, we have a comma, and again, not really reading the context of the sentences just yet. In my mind, I'm just separating things into separate categories using my punctuation, and there's a period here, and there's another comma right there. Now, in case you're wondering why I'm doing this with every single sentence, well, there's a couple of reasons. The first one is that I want to learn more about how to punctuate things. And when I'm able to catch my punctuations before I look at the context of the sentence and how it's broken up, I can better understand each of the sections. And the second one is just visual, okay? Visually seeing how things work and how sentences are structured. Drawing these red lines now helps my eye separate these ideas a lot more quickly. So once we have our punctuations in and everything's nicely separated, let's look at our first part. Again, we're looking for subject predicate only. We are starting off with when, and this is an adverb. Remember that whenever we're talking about things like when or after or before, we are dealing with time. Anything that deals with time is going to be called a temporal clause, okay? So temporal clauses will always have a dependent and independent clauses, okay? So in other words, one section is going to be dependent on another section. So reading it straight off the bat, the first thing, he was younger. Me stopping there would be very weird, which means I found my dependent clause, and then the independent clause is what governs the first part. All clauses work this way, right? Dependent and independent. And then we're going to have another clause, which I'm going to show you in a minute, but let's focus on this temporal clause first. So after we found our adverb, going back to our drawing board, we find our subject, which is he, and we will find our predicate, which is was. Next up, we have another section. And this one, if we're correct in our understanding of clauses, we have an independent clause. And we're starting with that. Now notice that that is way overused in English. But in this particular instance, this is called a demonstrative. It's a pronoun. Okay, sometimes we just say that when introducing indirect statements. We may even use that as a relative clause. So the book that I just read, okay, that in this case is a pronoun, demonstrative pronoun that demonstrates something, okay? So it is a subject, all right, because it's modifying collection. Okay, so that collection, all right. Now let's not move on past this because we have of as a preposition. So we are going to go to looked, and here is our predicate right there. Okay. Now, why is it that this predicate is not right next to its subject? Because your possessive, which is what of is, of features, has to be close to whatever it's possessing, and it's possessing the collection. What possesses a collection? Features possess the collection. Okay. So again, that collection, demonstrative that, modifying the subject, and predicate. That collection looked. And then we have a but, okay? A conjunction, a breakup in a sentence. And then we have another adverb now, and subject is it, and predicate suits. Awesome. All right. So before we get to the next sentence, which I'll do exactly like it, let's just finish up the other noun cases in the first part. So he was, linking verb, describing he, younger, predicate nominative, excellent, and that describes he. And then we have collection of features looked. How did it look? Again, is going to describe the collection. Same thing, predicate nominative. Okay. Describing collection. And then we have now another adverb. Subject, predicate suits. What does it suit, or who does it suit? And we have our direct object, him. All right. Next clause starts with an if, okay? And notice that clauses usually will begin with an adverb or something that's going to introduce them. Say, hey, I am either a clause of time, or I am, in this case, a conditional clause. So every time you see an if, it's a condition. In other words, if one thing happens, then another thing is bound to happen. So these are called conditional. And there are many conditional clauses, but we're not going to go into it too much. But it also has two parts, okay? One kind of introduces the condition, and the other section is going to give us the result of that condition. So let's go with the first. He is our subject, and our predicate is wasn't. And then the next part, I is my subject, and am is my predicate. Okay? So let's look at the first part. If he wasn't, what wasn't? Abnegation. Okay? So again, abnegation is describing he, meaning now that that's a predicate nominative, going back to the subject. Next, I am, another linking verb. What are you? Sure. There's another predicate nominative. And many of you may have been already stuck going, okay, Mr. G, what do we do next? What are you sure about is going to be the answer to the question. And remember that this now introduces something called an indirect statement. So I am sure that, again, that is missing, but it understood as being there. I am sure that, and here's the subject, the girls. It tells us what kind of girls they are. They are at school, so there's a preposition at and object of the preposition. And there is our predicate, would stare. Okay? And this is a verb that takes a preposition. In other words, a prepositional verb at object of the preposition, him. Okay? So if he wasn't abnegation, comma, then I'm sure that the girls at school would stare at him. Okay? This is known as a conditional clause. So let's look at the verbs and how they act here. So for the first part, he was, again, third person, singular, simple, and indicative. Then we also have a collection of features, looked. We have our first past tense, okay? Why? Because we're dealing with a temporal clause. So we are going from, was. I got so used to the present. It's actually singular, it's simple, but it's imperfect, okay? And same thing over here, because it's in the past, third person, singular. Now you may see collection as plural, but remember this is called a collective noun. It is singular in form, but plural in meaning. Imperfect, but it's, there you go, it's also true. And we now have, it suits, third person, singular, and it suits him now, so it's present. And then he wasn't, third, singular, simple, imperfect, indicative. Then we have first person, singular, simple, present indicative. And last but not least, we have third person plural because it's girls. All right, and it is simple, but it's past, in this case, call it imperfect. Not true though, because it's a condition, okay? It's subjunctive. All right? So in other words, if this condition was met in the past, okay, then I'm sure in the present that the girls would stare at him, okay, as the fulfillment of that condition. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching this challenge, and thank you a lot for your submissions. This week I'll be focusing on marking what you've given to me in the body paragraphs, and we're also going to have a video on how to write a conclusion. But I want to focus on meeting with you and helping you with your body paragraph. So please sign on a time, and let's do this step by step. If you're stressing out there and you think it's a lot of work, please join me on Google Meets so that we can work on this paragraph together. Thank you so much, guys. Take care and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.